Hey friends, welcome to the Passion and Purpose podcast. I'm so glad you're here for this important conversation with my friend, Hannah Brencher. Hannah is a gifted writer, speaker, and encourager who has been incredibly open about her journey with mental health. She recently released the Unplugged Hours, Cultivating a Life of Presence in a Digitally Connected World, which I highly recommend, by the way. Today, we're talking about what it looks like to trust in Jesus in the middle of anxiety and depression, and how our mental health can affect all aspects of our life. We're also going to talk about how small, consistent steps can lead to significant healing. So please welcome to the Passion and Purpose podcast, Hannah Brencher. I am excited to have as our first guest, after that milestone, somebody who has a huge voice in our church and in Shelley and I's lives and in so many people's lives around the world, and that's Hannah Brencher. So welcome to the Passion and Purpose podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I have to tell you, I have really been looking forward to today. And, I think that when the world went into this crisis of 2020, and all that came with that, and mental health became front and center for everyone, if it wasn't already. I kind of thought that maybe 22, 23, 24 would roll around and things would sort of, taper off or normalize in some way, but that is definitely not the case. Yeah. And so this conversation is vital. It's important today, and I'm really grateful that your voice is in it.
Thank you. I'm very passionate about it. So anytime I could talk about mental health, because it's ongoing. It seems to be getting worse. So there's something that we need to wake up to, I think, look around and readjust. Yeah,
and just to tip my hand for where I hope we end up today, it's not a subtle shift to get out of the situation we're in. This isn't something we're going to modify this over here or make a little change over here, and that's when we're going to get our minds back. It's going to take a radical, concerted, intentional, costly steps to regain the equilibrium that God is offering to each one of us. And I'm excited for you to talk about that. Before we do that, I like to ask people when they come on the podcast, we call this the Passion and Purpose podcast. What would you say for Hannah Brencher?
Yeah.
What is your passion in life? And maybe what is your purpose in life?
Oh, those are good questions. I would say like my passion, like the thing I've always been the most passionate about is words and language from my earliest memories. From the first time I knew how to pray, it was like, God, I just want to write. I just want to create things. So I would say that's my passion. And then my purpose through that is just, I think love God, love my people well. And honestly, if you ask me like what I do with a platform, I think I want to help people come out of the woods.
Wow.
And I want to help them live awake and present to the lives in front of them. And that does require intentionality. But for people to realize, like, I'm not called to be a spectator in this world and in this one life. Like, I'm called to be in the story. And what does that look like? And what does that mean? And what does that cost?
Wow, so beautiful. The book we're going to talk about a little bit later today, and I really, really, really want to encourage everybody to get this book. The book's called The Unplugged Hours, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the subtitle basically is what you're talking about right now, Cultivating a Life of Presence in a Digitally Connected World. And I love that that's the purpose that you're aiming at, and I know this is going to be a great resource for people. Tell everybody a little bit about you. If somebody doesn't know Hannah Brencher, they don't know your story, they don't know why we're having this conversation, why mental health.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, I'm Hannah. I'm mom to a little girl, Novalie, who's almost 5. I've been married to my husband, Lane, for 8 years, and I've lived in Atlanta for the last 10 years. So somebody told me the other day I'm allowed to say I'm from here, but
based on the people that live here, you've been here a long, long time.
I'm from New England. I grew up in a home that, like, my mom was a believer and she was the only believer in the home. And I don't want to say like I had an estranged relationship from God, but I didn't become a believer until I was 22. And that was when I felt like I had seen and tried everything to be like, nothing is filling this emptiness. And that's when I gave my life to Jesus. But yeah, when it comes to mental health, the first time that I ever dealt with depression and got a diagnosis was when I was 22, living in New York City, and shortly after gave my life to Jesus. But I ended up a few years later, I packed my whole life up into my Toyota Camry. I moved down south. I knew one person and I knew about Passion City Church. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to have an adventure. And 6 months into living here, I fell into a very severe depression. And looking back, I think all the signs were there that I was depressed. You know, I was crying every night. I was isolating. I was not planting roots down in the way I needed to be to have like a support system, even though people gathered around me graciously in that time, even though they didn't know me. But I was like either bypassing all of the road signs or like not knowing that they were there. I was under the misconception that if you had depression once, that was it. It's like chickenpox. It's never coming back again. That is not true. And so I remember so clearly the day that everything broke. I was in my co-working space. I went to a friend and I reached out to her, and that was something that was big for me to like reach out and say, hey, I'm struggling. Like my mind is struggling right now. Could you pray for me? And she prayed for me. And right after, as we were talking, I felt this pain go from the top of my head down to my toes. And it was like from that moment, like I did not feel in control of my brain anymore. I couldn't get out of bed anymore. I couldn't perform basic tasks. I was like fighting for my life. I was having night terrors. I wasn't sleeping through the night. And going from doctor to doctor, just trying to figure out what was wrong with me. It was it was the darkest time of my life and the biggest fight for my life for the next 4 months.
Wow. You know, I'm just sitting here, Hannah, thinking about somebody listening to us right now, and they're like, man, that sounds terrible. Yeah. You know, I'm glad I don't know what that's about. And I think I lived like that for a while. I probably was depressed a lot of my life and didn't know it. But when the crater came and the crazy happened.
Yeah.
And then you become, like you're looking at your story going, who is this person and what is going on?
What happened?
And what happened and how do we fix it? And we're in a fix it culture, and you can't fix depression. And you certainly can't fix that place you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it gets worse. I think I probably went to at least 15 doctors, for everything you could have.
Yes.
I had everything wrong with me. I have a brain tumor. I got to go get an MRI. And the guy says, no, you don't have a brain tumor. I'm like, okay, well, I was pretty sure I did.
Yeah.
But now I think I have something in my legs. Get that looked at. And I had a friend, Hannah, who was coaching me just from a distance, a brilliant doctor. But I had met him because Shelley had a back problem, and he was an orthopedic at the time. He'd been an emergency room doctor in another time of his life. But he knew exactly what was going on, and he knew he couldn't tell me. He just had to let me kind of work it out.
Yeah.
And he coached me, and he over there was just keeping score. It's not that. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's not
yeah.
that. It's not that. And when you get down to the end down here and there are no more boxes to check and no more doctors to go to, you have to go, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's this.
It's this.
Lord, help me with this. How did that page turn from the 4 months of crazy? I know it didn't turn in one day, but what do you think was a part of the...
Gosh, I mean, it was so many small steps. Like I always envision it like that story Hansel and Gretel with like the little breadcrumbs in the woods to get you home. It was a complete breaking of the foundation that I had known for my life to rebuild it. I think some of the critical things were allowing people to come around me, being an active part of community. I was very much when can I grab my suitcase and go type person before this, but I had to let people in. I had to let people hold me. I had to, let somebody be the call that I made at 5 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. And that was really hard for me. It was realizing that after having this happen, like there's no going back to before. It's very much like a before and after, a line drawn in the sand. And I had to choose to live my life a completely different way. Before that, I would say like I was disciplined maybe in like the area of work. Like I knew how to be a workaholic, but like I didn't know how to take care of my mental health or my physical health, or the fact that the mental and the physical and the spiritual are all connected. And I think one of the biggest things for me that I had to really come to grips with is I had to believe that God was for me.
Yeah.
And that God was not mad at me, and that God was not causing this. And I know, like, to somebody, you're like, I would have never thought that. If I thought that, like, I had done something wrong and that's why I was in the pit, I was down in the pit. But when I could train my mind to say, God is for me, he is brokenhearted over this, that was the shift for me. That's when I could suddenly fight. And that's because, you know, when I first accepted Jesus and, like, didn't have much knowledge of the Bible and just kind of listened to like all of these voices but hadn't dug into the source yet, I think I got the wrong idea. I got the idea that like I had to earn his love. I had to fight for his love. I had to keep my life together in order to get that love. And so what do you do when your life is falling apart and you're sitting in a waiting room of an inpatient program and you're looking around and you want to be like, this isn't me. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, I had to learn to like rest in that love. And that was really hard for me, but it changed everything.
Talk about that for somebody who is struggling right now with things inside and outside, but the root is that thing you're talking about. How do you get to the accepting the fact that I am loved by a perfect Father in heaven, and I'm valued by him, and I'm going to live out of that versus try to live for that?
I think a big thing for me that I remember during that time, and it's something that I still do now whenever I need like a rinse and repeat method, you know, I had to write out all of the lies that I was believing. And then one by one, I would cross them out and I would replace them with biblical truth. And I remember like I had friends that would sit me down at the table, like, because no one wanted to leave me alone. And I'm so thankful no one left me alone, because I didn't need to be left alone at that time. But like they'd sit me down at their table. They're like, I'm going to go make dinner for my toddler and you are going to write down your Bible truths. And it was just a practice over and over and over again. And it's the realization that that is most things in life. It's not instant. It's not overnight. It's habits that we create to fight the battle of life, whether that is depression or that's something else. We're all in a battle, so we all need a battle plan.
Well, I think that so often we underestimate our own ability to engage with whatever it is that we're struggling with. And it's like, I need someone else to come and fix all this, versus God saying, you have the power right here to think about true things. You have the power to think about true things, because the enemy tells us that we have way less power than we have, especially in Christ. He wants to sell us the fact that we can't do anything, we can't fight anything, we can't win against anything. We're just stuck where we are, get used to it, deal with it. That's who you're going to be. And God is saying, no, you have the ability to focus on what is true. And it might take focusing on it, as Caroline Leaf says, for 66 days, or it might take 6 months, but you can build a new highway in your brain, just like you built the old highway. Over by
time.
Thinking over and over about the wrong thing, you can build a new road in your brain. And I think that I love that about your story. When you talk about it, you talk about the love of God being the new foundation, the love that you have found in him and with him being the new foundation to rebuild a new way of thinking about yourself and a new way of thinking about life. I think I ultimately only go on to write about the things that like I've lived and experienced. And my prayer is constantly, God, if I am not living it, don't let me speak about it, you know? The phone now in 2025 and beyond and in COVID was directly tied to the state of my mental health, right? I could be in remission from severe depression for the last 10 years and still need to tune up my mental health. And for me, like when I decided to start unplugging and like weave that in as a habit and a discipline, I was constantly feeling overwhelmed
exhausted, unable to be present. And it wasn't like I wanted to live that way. Like, I don't think any of us are like, oh, like that's how I want to be, right? But I had a new little girl at home. She was a baby. And I was constantly grabbing for my phone all throughout the day, even though there was technically nothing to check, but it was a habit that had become ingrained in me. And I remember it was my 33rd birthday. I was sitting doing my quiet time and, going on my own adventures of like, what are we going to do with this year? And I heard so clearly in my spirit, turn off your phone. And I knew right then that was the call. And it wasn't like turn off your phone once, reap all the benefits. It was like, no, this is what this whole entire year is about, turning off your phone and learning to live in that way. And that was 2021. And now I'm in 2025. And it's still, I can say, like, the best discipline I have ever cultivated, especially to like know and experience the presence of God.
And especially for the Lord to say that on your birthday of all things, because that's become a very burdensome day for people, I think.
Yes.
Because people in different parts of the world start texting you before you're awake.
Yep.
And then as you're getting in the shower, your phone is buzzing. And when you're getting in your car, your phone is buzzing. And then other people who are on these time zones are texting you during dinner. And then someone forgot. And so they're texting you at 11:52, trying to slip in under the radar. And then you got to text them all back.
Yeah. I used to be so anxious on my birthday because it's like I'm waiting to be loved or seen or whatever it was. And the moment I heard it, I turned off my phone. I did not turn my phone back on for 12 hours. I was with the people that I was around. I'll look back and say that was the best birthday of my life. Like, it was. And there's this picture that a friend took of like me and my daughter's on my lap, and there's a cake, and I look so happy. And I realized in that moment, like, this is the best I've felt in years, because I'm blocking out this noise and I'm being fully present to what is right in front of me. And actually, this is the most important thing. And so I think there's so much elements of trying to keep us distracted from what's right in front of us and convincing us it's not enough. But then we go to these devices that are just more and more and more, and we're never satisfied. And so, gosh, like living present in the present moment, like I think that's where you learn contentment and you meet with God in daily life.
What you were sharing, I think, is the root for me. Or one of the big roots. You said and you were just throwing it out there, but on your birthday it's stressful because you're wanting people to affirm you. You wanted to get some text, and you wanted people to love you.
Yeah.
And I think that admitting for me, when we planted Passion City Church, a lot of things changed for us. We were doing this global movement. We were in a city for a big event and out. We had a very small team that we worked with every day, 10 people. But when you plant a church, you're signing up to like be in people's lives, for a long, long time. And it's hard, like family is hard. Your distant relatives, you see them at Thanksgiving, that's easy. The people you live with and your next door neighbor, that's a whole different ball game. And Hannah, when we planted the church is when I went in the hole.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this till a little bit later. But I think a lot of things got me in the hole. But I think the last little push was me not recognizing how much I depended on people's approval. And I had gotten by with that in the other life because I would show up and do something and get applause or thank you or that was wonderful. But when we got into this thing, it wasn't like that.
No, you signed up for the ordinary,
I got
right?
an arrow like right through here, in about month 2. And I went, oh, people are shooting arrows here. All right, didn't know. And I realized that I had an inordinate need for the approval of people. The other thing that pushed me in there, and I've written about this, I think, was the need for control. And you can control showing up and speaking somewhere or doing an event for 2 days over here, but you can't control a local church.
No.
Like zero.
No.
So I was like, wow, I have signed up for something that is really going to make me face my issues. And I think that's what the phone is all about. It is a fear of missing out because I will feel less valuable if I wasn't there or I didn't do that or they did something that I wasn't able to do. And I feel like I'm just speaking for me. I think I need to continually admit that I have an inordinate need for approval from other people if I'm going to be able to put this phone down, because I've got to deal with that.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as just putting the phone down, because if I do, I might be over here the whole time going, I wonder what I'm missing over there while I got the phone down. How long does it take you to get to where you don't go through that exercise anymore and you're like, I got it down, I did that part, but I'm still thinking about it?
Okay, so it's hard. It's very hard at the beginning. There's a lot of resistance to it. You have like phantom phone syndrome where you're like reaching for it and it's not there. You know, I always go back to, I remember right before I started unplugging, I was in the Gospels reading and I read that verse that I had read thousands of times before. Jesus saying, the thief came to steal and kill and destroy, and I came that you might have life abundantly. And I'm like a words person, so I'm like digging in. I'm going to Blue Letter Bible, like, what does that mean? And like, there were multiple definitions of above and beyond, exceedingly more. And I wrote right in my journal, is this the exceedingly more? Like, is this it? And what I realized through unplugging was the exceedingly more was available to me. I had to detox from it. I still have to detox from it. But anytime I put it down, it's all of a sudden I can breathe again. And I'm like, oh, I don't need to strive for the approval of other people because you, God, are my reward. And there's a part in the Bible, and I'll botch up where it is, but the part where Jesus is talking about, like, don't go out in the streets, don't make a public display. And I never noticed it, but he says right there, he says, they will have their reward. Mm-hmm. And that was like a brain breaker for me to be like, oh, technically the applause and people seeing you is a reward, but there's a better reward. Yeah. And I just constantly am like, I don't want to get stuck in thinking that's the reward. God has a better reward, and it's himself. And I can only get to that when I put it away, when I get to the root of things, when I say, okay, yeah, like I struggle with people pleasing. Let's drag that into the light and bring that into quiet time rather than thinking that something about the noise is going to fix it for me.
Oh, so good. You're challenging people in the book to have 1,000 unplugged hours in a year. And
if they want, they can do 100.
I'm new to the book, so I'm on the front end. But here's your graph for filling in your 1,000 hours, and that's how you'll know that you made your goal. But for you, talk about the journey. So that birthday day, 12 hours, best birthday of your life. Now you're deciding, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start down this road. This isn't going to be a birthday thing. This is, I think you said, this is a year thing. This is for this year. And now here we are years later. How did you migrate from that moment to this lifestyle that you're now encouraging other people to? And what's the journey look like? It's different for everyone, I know, but what's the journey going to be like for me when I say, okay, Hannah, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to have 1,000 unplugged hours.
I mean, I get emotional talking about it because I think when I started to unplug, I thought I'll be a more present mom, or I'll be a better friend, or I'll get more done. If I'm being honest, I'm like, oh, I could focus more. And I don't think I had any idea the journey that God was really going to bring me on and the layers he was going to pull off of me. And like, I think it was in year 2 that like when people would ask me how my unplugging was going, and I still say it now, I say, it feels like I'm getting back to the person who existed before all the noise got in. And I didn't realize that I had lost her or that I missed her so much. And so it's everything from, when I first became a follower of Jesus and it was so real and exciting and like, studying the Bible and like getting back to those roots of that excitement and that wonder. My creativity, like I feel like that was dead pretty much when I started to unplug, because you're going onto these social platforms to figure out what to post, but all of that is based on what people like about you or don't like about you. And I'm like, that will kill the creative spirit so fast. And I'm like, now I can get away. I write everything longhand on yellow notepads, and I feel like I'm back to a space of creating and partnering with God in that creation and listening for what he's telling me to put out there, and like realizing, if it's for one person, then that's enough. And that was the mission for today. I think for me, I remember years ago when I first started, building a brand or being an entrepreneur or whatever it was, I took like a spiritual gifts test, and it was leadership and like something else like preaching was like my top. And I remember my lowest one was hospitality. And I was like, that's fine, because like I knew nothing about hospitality, right? Except for that one time I did serve on hospitality team here, and I learned very quickly hospitality is a hard job. But it's so funny because as I've unplugged, man, like I actually realized that hospitality is a gift of mine that I don't think the enemy wanted me to know I had.
Wow.
And I've learned how to show up so much better for my friends, how to create a space for my family, how to, you know, I always say like my motto in life right now is go to the door. Like whenever you can, go to the door. Like it's maybe inefficient or like not like the top priority of the day, but like when you decide to make like people and showing up for people the top priority, like everything kind of shifts. It's filling in a way that nothing has ever filled me, to be like, oh, okay, to live with a generous spirit. There's so many things I know I could yammer on about. I just didn't know that life could be this full. And I think it was all waiting for me. But I was distracted by whatever like the sugar and the sucrose was of the phone, right? It's like that quick dopamine surge. No, we were designed for like slow release dopamine. And that's your life around you. That's conversations with your friends and family. That's walks around the block. That's practicing patience. All of that stuff releases dopamine, but it's a slower kind.
Man, I don't know where I saw this, but this phrase that you used, or maybe it was someone talking about the book, and this is what a little bit about what you're talking about, but it really stuck out to me. Focusing on a simple task. And it just felt so freeing.
Yeah.
And it convicted me a little bit. My memory is not super great right now anyway. But just yesterday, right before I saw this, I needed to do something, and I don't even remember what it was now, check something on my phone. And so I went to do it, picked my phone up to do the thing. Mm-hmm. And 4 things later, I remembered, oh, I came here to do that.
Yeah.
Not these 4 things. And it's just so easy for us to get, you know, on a road that we weren't even on. And then a fork off of that onto some other road. And I found a lot of joy in this phrase, focusing on a simple task. Like, talk about that just for a second.
Well, we're a world obsessed with multitasking, and all the research actually shows that it's not making us more efficient or productive, that monotasking, and that's like the focus on a single thing right in front of you, whether you're making a meal, having a conversation with a friend, or, you know, creating something. But like, we're so obsessed with, well, I can do it with Gilmore Girls on in the background, and like also having the iMessage open. And it's so funny because like as I've slowed down and committed to more monotasking, I feel like I'm actually getting a lot more done because I'm placing my attention on the thing right in front of me. And that's what it says right there in the scripture. Like, whatever you're doing, do it to the glory of God. Well, how am I doing it to the glory of God if I'm doing it distracted with 3 other things happening at the same time? And so it's a consistent discipline, because like I will still pick up my phone and be like, wait, what was I trying to do? It's like the phone knows when you start to unplug, and they're like, okay, bring all the memes, all the things that used to get her attention. Like, they're throwing it at you. Like, they want you to be on these devices. And I don't think the devices are bad or wrong. But like when you realize, oh no, I was actually designed to go thing by thing and to place my attention on something, to place my presence on something. I think like, yeah, if we're made in the image and the likeness of God, and the most powerful thing that God ever gave us was his presence, then that must mean that our presence holds some power too, to other people, to the jobs that we've been called to do, to our children. And yet none of us are being present. If I'm being honest, you go anywhere and everybody's on their phone, and it breaks my heart. And I just think like, I'm not telling anybody that's the right or wrong way to do it, but I'm like, we got to look up. God
Absolutely.
has so much to look up for.
You know, I came from another era. It's hard. You know, you can't communicate from one era to the other, sadly. But I came from another era. Like, I think I got my first mobile phone when I was 32 years old.
Yeah.
It was a bag phone, and it weighed 8 pounds, and you had to have it wired into your car. So, you know, I came from a world where there was nothing.
Yeah.
There was photographs that you had to get developed. And but now I'm very much living in this world, but I remember the other world. I still have these faint memories of the other world. And so I am really committed to looking up. You know, the stars are up in the sky.
Yeah.
And I do use my phone to identify them sometimes, so I'm grateful for it. You know, I'm like, okay, I think that's Saturn, and I know that's Mars, but I'm going to double check. Yep, that's Saturn, and yep, that's Mars. Thank you, phone, for being amazing. But then I don't need the phone anymore because I want to feel the awe of the star. Talk practically, because I'm on the front end of this.
Yeah.
Do you wake up in the morning and go, today I'm going to unplug for X, and I'm going to do it here? Or is it more as we go? And two questions at once. Does it matter if does it need to be longer to be valuable? Because I guarantee you I can fill in those 1,000 circles real quick because I don't even know where my phone is half the time. And I can go, I've been without a phone for 4 hours. But that's not the goal, is to not know where your phone is necessarily.
Yeah.
So what's the practical, what look like?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing too is like, you don't want to become like rigid and legalistic about it because it does take the joy out of like the purpose of it. So like the girl that had a tracker when she first started is actually very different than who I am now, though I still use a tracker because I do believe that we can't manage what we don't measure. And so
we're at the podcast right there.
But if you were to want to like say, okay, like I want to get more fit this year, you could count the number of times that you were going to the gym or the calories you were eating. But when it comes to our phones, really all we have is screen time for the most part. And I don't know if anybody's ever gotten on screen time and not felt like deep shame. Like I turned it off because I was like, this is not making me feel good about my life. But yeah, I would say instead of going hardcore of like the phone is bad, I have to get rid of it, think about the things that you want to add to your life. Maybe make a list of the person that you want to become in the next year ahead. What is that person like? And then what are the habits that person cultivates? Chances are most of those habits are going to be phone-free things. And then it's just a matter of self-control, of parenting yourself better to say, you know what, like I want to do this thing and I want to do it undistracted. So I need to put the phone away. Like you can get one of those like fancy app blockers or this and that, but like I guess I always see it through the lens of like now being a parent, like everybody always wants to talk about screen time with the kids. And I'm like, but what about us? Like we are the models of this and we are not doing so well, you know? And so it's that resolve to say, I'm going to parent myself better and say, you know what, tonight I don't need to scroll for 2 hours before bed. I need to put the phone away. I need to draw a bath. I need to read a fiction book or, you know, Gordon McDonald. First person that came to my mind. But like, this is what I know I need. And I think that that's the root of it. Getting to the root of why do you feel like you need the phone so much? Is it because you need comfort? Is it because you need approval? Is it because you feel like if you have all the information, then maybe the world won't be on fire anymore? And then saying, is there something that I can actually do that is going to fill me up and recharge my soul and help me not pour from an empty cup or help me show up to like what God has designed me to do? Because there are better options out there than that.
Let's talk at the end here as we kind of wind down about the church just for a moment, because a lot of church people are in this conversation right now with us. You talk about the difference, which I think is really important, between mental illness and mental health.
Yeah.
So talk about that for a moment and then talk about the church. Are we doing okay in caring for people and encouraging people to care for themselves, or we got a long way to go?
Yeah, so that's something that recently over the last few years I've been digging into. As I've been reading the scriptures, I feel like God has just been illuminating to me. It's not just about like the stories where mental illness is presented, but mental health in general and how mental health is so tied to the physical and the spiritual and the emotional. It's all tied in. And so it's one thing to say like, oh, okay, like I haven't struggled with severe depression in 10 years. Hallelujah. That's amazing. But then am I at a stagnant point where I'm like, well, I'm not in the pit, so I'm doing pretty good. Like, I feel like God has just been speaking through his word about like, what does it look to live in that abundantly more? That's mental health. It's the optimization of your health. And so that's for anybody that's in the church, that if there's somebody in your congregation like that's not dealing with depression or anxiety or OCD or whatever it may be, but like is doom scrolling at night, or is just doing Netflix binge after Netflix binge, or whatever it might be. Like, we're not cultivating their thought life. That's a call to mental health. And I think that that's something that we have to consistently be putting at the forefront for the church today and the church going forward, is that we're called to not just take care of our minds, but our bodies, but our spiritual life, and protect the integrity of our quiet times and one another. And like, that's a tall order.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, as we are here going through daily life, like, I don't want to just say, okay, well, I'm not in the pit, so I'm okay. Like, I want to live knowing, like, wow, I took care of myself so that I could run the race that was set before me and run it well.
Yeah, the word that's going to stick with me, I think, from our conversation is you talking about digging into what is abundance.
Yeah.
And what is the above and beyond, I think you said, was one of the ways that was phrased. And I think someone listening to us today is just settled.
Yeah.
They've just settled for this is life. And I think that everybody in any situation, whether you're, raising kids today, or whether you're out running some multifaceted company or whatever you're got going on today, everyone can elevate their peace of mind, their confidence in God to be in control of their life, their appreciation for how precious they are, and then the simple things. And for me, I always want to say to people, I thought it was dumb when people said, do breathing exercises. I just always thought that was the dumbest thing. I was like, people do breathing exercises? Are you kidding? And then I got to where I needed to do breathing exercises, and then I researched breathing exercises, and then I learned about breathing, and then I was like, oh, that's actually the best thing you can do for your brain is to learn how to breathe. And I was a terrible breather,
Yeah, but it's like those small things. It's like the unassuming things. Like, I think when we think about this, we're like, oh, I got to overhaul, or like if it's unplugging, I got to throw the phone in the woods and like get a dumb phone or whatever. But sometimes it's like, no, are you breathing? Are you checking in with yourself? When you have a moment and you feel like you're not okay, like, do you know how to check in? Or do you go and you check out immediately with whatever's on the phone? To me, it's like, being a mom of a 4-year-old, sometimes it's like, I check in by like brewing a cup of tea. I keep a Bible on the countertop in the hopes that I will open up the Bible instead of scroll on my phone, and that she might see me and know where I'm going for my help, It's these little tiny tweaks. It doesn't have to be an overhaul, but don't discount the small stuff, because mental health is literally the small stuff, day in and day out. I've been living it for 10 years, and it ends up being the big stuff.
Yeah. There's so many things in here specifically I wish we had time to talk about today. I love the fact that consistently through the book, you use the phrase power down. So I powered down. I powered over here. I powered down. I chose to power down. That is also going to be a good image for me of just, and you talk about resetting and hard resets, and just, I think the mentality of all that is so practical and real. Thank you for being authentic. I think when I think about you, Hannah, if somebody said one word, Hannah Brencher, I would be authentic.
Thank you.
And authentic is, so precious, and it's uncommon, but when you're around it, it's so refreshing. And that's what this book is about. And I've already gleaned a ton from it. And I really want to encourage everybody. I think you can see the cover, but please check it out, The Unplugged Hours. And I think it would be helpful to say at the end, Hannah, because somebody's listening in that is at a critical point right now.
Yeah.
That I would like to say, and I know that you would too, that it's not all about praying more. It's not all about getting a friend who can speak a word of faith over you.
Yeah.
Get help if you need help. Reach out to someone. I love that you said that. I called somebody, and I found people that I needed to call, but go see a doctor.
Yeah.
Let God use other people, because he uses doctors. He uses medicine. He uses faith. He uses his word. He uses all kinds of things to help reset. And I know when you've been in a place where you need a hard reset, you can't just have a quiet time and hope everything's going to be different the next day. So if you need help, Hannah and I want to encourage you, reach out and let the people around you help you find the help that you need. because it's possible that as much as you feel like everything is totally out of control right now, that you could be sitting at a table like this, calm, happy, in a good space. And God has that for every single person listening to us today.
Yeah.
Why don't you pray for people, if you would, and we'll encourage them in that way.
Dear God, we thank you so much for this conversation, God, to get to talk about something that is just so important in today's day and age and in this digital age, God, the topic of not just mental illness, God, but mental health, and how do we cultivate and optimize our mental health in a world where just tech is getting crazier and crazier, God. And so I just pray that whoever is listening today, God, one of two things. God, for the person that's listening and they're like, you know what, I'm good and I'm okay, but like I do want to be more present, God, that you would just give them that nugget, that bit of encouragement, that nudge of what they could do putting the phone down or who they could become, God. And for the person that's listening, God, who just knows that they're in a pit or that, like me, they are avoiding all the road signs, God, I pray that you would deposit a spirit of bravery into them, God, that they could reach out, that they could tell a friend that they're struggling, God, that they could go to their church group, even if they don't know them that well, God, and say, like, I need help. They could reach out to a doctor or ask for a referral, God. You are in all of these things, God, and I pray that you would remind that person, God, through all the junctures, that you are in it and that you are present in it and that you never leave us, God. Even in our darkest moments, you are with us. You go before us. You come behind us. You are all around us, God. And I just pray that someone tonight gets to fall asleep with the feeling of that presence, God, of knowing that you are enveloping them and that your nature is goodness and that you have goodness and abundance for us, God. We ask all of these things in your beautiful Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Amazing. Enjoyed it. So grateful for you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Passion and Purpose. I'm so grateful for Hannah and the way that she shares her story with honesty and wisdom. If today's conversation encouraged you, share it with a friend or leave a review. We'd love to hear how these episodes are speaking to you, where you are in your story right now. And if you're in a season where hope feels distant, know this: God is near, and He's not finished with your story. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Passion and Purpose Podcast.